Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Welcome. Again, thank you for joining the Ethiopian Coffee and Global Market Amidst COVID and Beyond webinar. To remind you why we're meeting virtual over live, here's a short reminder and a message from Ethiopia.
We are traveling through an unprecedented time. We are uncertain of the history being written. Our realities so fragmented are yesterday, today, tomorrow. In the past, we have shared moments so pure, lit up the streets with our incandescence, scaled heights unimaginable, danced to rhythms so harmonious, stood beyond structures so heavenly, marveled at the origins of mankind, devoured meals of explosive taste. We have done so much more together. At this moment, with the streets so quiet, we have these memories on repeat. We are going through this together. We are sharing what we can. As for the future, the only way is through. The only way is together. Memories will be waiting. Our tomorrows will be waiting. We will survive. We will light up. We will embrace one another. This is from Ethiopia, the land of origins. At heart and in mind, we stand with you. We are with you through today's hardships for a tomorrow of new memories. Stay safe today for your travel, for our reunion tomorrow. We can't wait to see you soon at the land of origins.
Again, thank you for tuning in. I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Manahat. I'm from Flawless Events, and we're very happy to be partnering with Hyatt, and we're there right now at the Kaskara Coffee Bar. To give you an understanding of who else is joining us from all over the world today, we have six continents covered. A lot of people are joining us from all over the world. Of course, 63% is Africa. Yay, go Africa. And then, about 66% of the people that are on this webinar from all over the world are interested in the coffee market, or they are in the coffee market. About 18% are trying to go into the coffee market. So we have a very wonderful variety of people joining us here today. So to give you an understanding and why we're doing this is to, why this webinar is being commenced is to increase transparency into the coffee industry, into the Ethiopian coffee industry, to learn from key leaders that are leading the Ethiopian coffee industry right now, to also increase exposure and exposure to the talent over around the coffee industry. And then lastly, to reassure the world that the coffee industry is ready for anything, even COVID-19. We have a fantastic list of panelists here with us today. Our wonderful Sara Yerga is the co-founder and executive manager of Ya Coffee. She will be moderating the webinar. We also have the director of the Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority, Dr. Adunya Debela. We have the president of the Women in Coffee, Meseret Desta. We have the executive director of the International Women in Coffee Alliance, Kelem Agnew Emmanuel. We have the executive director of Alliance of Coffee Excellence, Darren Daniel. And we have the EU delegation to Ethiopia, Mr. Dominic DeVoe. We have the founder of Arden Coffee, Mr. Ashanafi Argao, the founder and the GM of Moye Coffee, Mr. Ahadu Uvishet. And lastly, we have the Digital Transformation Office to the PM in Ethiopia, Miriam Said. Please engage with us on YouTube. If you have any questions, ask us via YouTube. Your questions will be, they will get to the speakers, no problem. And also, if you're sharing on different social media platforms, please use the hashtag Let's Talk Coffee ET. Thank you, and I will give the baton to Sara Yerga to start the webinar.
Thank you, Manahat. Hello, everyone. Salam, as I usually say, salam is greeting in Amharic, and thank you for joining us from all corners of the world. We're so excited to have you here virtually. We can't wait to just tell you how some of the most amazing things that are happening in Ethiopia and in coffee amidst the challenge the globe is really going through, which is COVID-19. we're talking about more about opportunities than the challenges. So that's more exciting for me. We have very high level delegate speakers here, which they're going to give us overview of what is the current state of preparedness and the Ethiopian coffee market from farm to port, and what are the digital or e-commerce opportunities for Ethiopian coffees in the local market and in the global scenario. There will also be the role of development partners that will be covered by Mr. Davo. COVID-19 impact as a global, we are women in coffee, that's why we're facilitating this event, and the global alliance, the International Women in Coffee Alliance, Kalam, will give us a highlight of what's happening in that regard. The Cup of Excellence, that's the most exciting part again, where that happened in 2020 in Ethiopia, although we're not able to just party and drink a lot of coffee in the name of the winning top coffees. We can do it here with all of you. Thank you for joining us for that as well. Darren Daniels is here with us. He will be telling us what's happening with the Cup of Excellence winning coffees and the opportunities for all Ethiopian coffees. We'll also have value addition. What's the future of value addition? Ahadu, an industry leader from Ethiopia, will be telling us about roasted origin and export opportunities for Ethiopian coffees. Ashanafi is here as well, one of the most well-versed person in the marketing and branding of Ethiopian coffees. He will tell us about his experience and what branding and marketing opportunities there are for Ethiopian coffees. If there is anyone I did not mention here, will be Masarat. She will be giving us a welcome note, and I will give the screen to Masarat right now. It's a pre-recorded message, but you will enjoy it.
Salam, ጤና ይስጥልኝ. Greetings to you all. Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our second webinar on Ethiopian coffee's global market amidst COVID-19 and beyond. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time applies to you. This public forum is organized by the Ethiopian Women in Coffee Sectoral Association, a membership learning experience sharing for Ethiopian women in the coffee value chain, and it's a networking platform. EWIC is also one of the 25 chapters of International Women Coffee Alliance, UCA, operating globally with a shared vision. As many research show, women entrepreneurs' competitiveness in global, regional, and local markets is hindered by a major challenge: lack of access to information, lack of access to resources, lack of proper communication skills, and lack of access to finance, not to mention other domestic issues. These problems are more magnified in the coffee sector, since it is the second largest commodity traded globally, and over 70% of the workforce in the value chain is women. So, the question is, how can we bring a comprehensive solution to a complex challenge such as this one? Through collaboration and dialogue. To say a few words about our activities, the Ethiopian Women in Coffee, since its establishment in 2016, has been 1. Conducting trainings on various topics, mainly on coffee skills, marketing, communication, and entrepreneurship to its members and non-members. 2. We have established a successful partnership with institutions and development agencies to improve our services to members. 3. We have increased members' participation in international expos and conferences. And 4. We have actively participated in national dialogues and policy reforms. 5. We had been working towards bringing strong African women in coffee presence at African Fine Coffee Association annual events in collaboration with International Women Coffee Alliance. For this, we believe that EWIC is beyond enabling women in coffee of Ethiopia. It's an institution that works very hard towards impacting in a meaningful way through collaborative coffee sector efforts by engaging every stakeholder, where we eventually develop a platform for a continued coffee dialogue. In this regard, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of such reforms and dialogues as they will be. We believe, 1. The new normal to exchanging relevant information among stakeholders near and far. 2, we believe it's also an opportunity for the sector to enhance open dialogue among everyone in the coffee value chain. 3, by connecting coffee professionals from across the globe to discuss more possibilities at a time like this. 4, it's also a very good opportunity to continue what we always do, which is capacity building and increasing visibility of women in the coffee value chain. 5, it's a wonderful opportunity to explore about Ethiopian coffees and Ethiopian coffee culture. We believe there are untapped potentials of the Ethiopian coffee industry that could attract many, like local coffee consumption, coffee marketing, small and medium enterprises' role in the coffee value chain, women's role in the coffee value chain, job creation, coffee and tourism, coffee science and education. This event wouldn't be possible without our partner support, and we would like to thank our gold level sponsor, Feed the Future Ethiopia Value Chain, for always stepping up and investing on our efforts. Thank you. Silver label sponsor, Metad, Agricultural Development PLC, for your commitment to support our mission at a time like this. Ato Aman Adnau and the team, thank you. We want to thank all the speakers, the Facilitator Ms. Sarah Yirga, the board for their continuous effort in making this happen. We want to thank concerned government officials, Ministry of Trade, Coffee and Tea Authority, ECX, Ministry of Agriculture, for believing in us and always collaborating despite their busy schedule. Last but not least, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our host, Flawless Events, for the impeccable production behind everything you see and for constantly ensuring the quality of this online event. Thank you and enjoy the next session.
Oh, we thank you, Masarat, for that message. Yes, there is a reason for the Ethiopian Women Coffee to engage all of us in such a platform. And yes, there is a purpose to it. One of the reasons being transparency, communication, and yes, we cannot meet in person, but we can talk about coffee anytime. One of the best things that coffee does is connect people. And here we are in a virtual world connecting again. Thank you again. I would love to thank all our panelists. They're introduced already. I don't need to introduce them again, but I would like to take this opportunity again to thank our sponsors, Feed the Future Ethiopia Value Chain, USAID program, where they happily covered all the expenses related to this webinar, and Metad, our all-time partner in education and training, is also one of the sponsors here, and I would love to take this opportunity to say thank you. Now we go to our speakers, and I would like to take you to Dr. Adunya. Dr. Adunya, I have these two main questions for you, and please, I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and please tell us what's happening at institutional level at Coffee and Tea Authority in terms of getting ready for whatever COVID-19 is bringing as a challenge, and beyond that, and how are we preparing ourselves to the opportunities as well as the surprises that will be coming along this pandemic. Can you please give us a highlight of the Coffee and Tea Authority's activities very briefly? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and I would like to extend my appreciation to the organizing committee. Can you hear me now? Yeah, so it is a pleasure for me to be part and a parcel of this webinar, and to at least say something what Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority is doing in the coffee sector. Ethiopia Coffee, Tea and Authority is a mandated authority actually that to oversee the coffee production, marketing, value addition, and post-harvest quality management from end to end. In this regard, is the main mandate for aspects that are actually related with coffee. So in that case, regulations and directives and to directly sell their product to the international market. Currently, we are also working on a public-private partner in order to further increase the coffee production and exploit the potential that we have in our country to further increase the production and export of the Ethiopian coffee. Working closely for events that is aimed for linking Ethiopian coffee exporters with different international markets. The AFCA is next year that is going to be organized here. And also I have a very good news for Ethiopia because of the activities that we are currently doing. The renowned International Coffee Conference, we call it ASIC, is going to be hosted next year here in Ethiopia. They have already asked us. This year it is going to be held in France, but the next conference is going to be held here in Ethiopia. So these are all the indications that Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority is doing at its level best in managing. So that we haven't seen any problem regarding COVID, but the COVID problem, if there's a problem, if it persists, there might be impact on the supply side shock because most of the coffee loading and unloading, coffee quality maintenance management, coffee roasting, and also coffee picking, they are all labor intensive. If we are really having this problem, or if this pandemic is continue, so there might be a supply side shock from the Ethiopian side. It's not only that, there is also a problem from the extension and also the production aspects, because we are not able to address the extension and the input supply parts in the to the farmers. That's also another problem, will significantly impact the next year coffee production and also the subsequent coffee production in general. Therefore, the Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority has already identified a strategy how to cope up. That is going to happen because of the COVID. Something later, because we have already designed on how to work with the European Union on how to tackle the effect of COVID across the value chain. So we have already identified where will be the most important problem that would happen due to COVID following the value chain, particularly in the supply side. There might be a strong effect of COVID on the Ethiopian sector. So we are getting ourselves ready in order to at least strategically solve the problem that will be happening because of COVID. So a number of activities are being undertaken, and strategically we are approaching how to solve this kind of problem. So these are some things that I would like to say. Because of time, if there is any question, I'll be back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Adunya. You even answered my second question, which is what collaborative activities are underway with stakeholders, and you already mentioned that you're working with EU and moving forward in terms of planning to mitigate the impacts of COVID if it persists. So that is one question I had, and thank you for really being in time. I will go to Miriam next, and Miriam, my question to you will be, can you please briefly introduce to us what Digital Ethiopia is, and tell us what the opportunity it brings to the agricultural sector in general and specifically to coffee in terms of e-commerce and connection. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you very much for, thank you to the organizer for inviting me to this very important topic. And I'm a big fan of this sector, not because I'm a heavy consumer of coffee, but also for the opportunity it brings to our country. So maybe to brief about what Digital Ethiopia is, Digital Ethiopia 2025 is a 5 years national digital transformation strategy that was compiled with the objective to transition Ethiopia to a digital economy. The vision is to innovate, create, and adopt new and future technologies to allow for more efficient and inclusive interactions between citizens, governments, and businesses, and of course, progress towards our national priorities. To do that, we have come up with a framework that consists of 4 main pillars, which are mainly infrastructure. And when we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about data infrastructure, internet infrastructure, and increased access to power. The second pillar is the enabling systems, where we are looking at accelerating a national digital ID in the country, the digital payment infrastructures, and also having a robust cybersecurity infrastructure to enable digital to grow. Going at the front end, which is probably more relevant to our topic today, is to increase efficiency between government to citizens, citizens to government interactions like e-government application, but also looking at how people transact and trade by introducing e-commerce in the country. The fourth, and not the least, is creating an enabling digital ecosystem. So that includes increasing and facilitating access to finance to our micro and small, medium enterprises and entrepreneurs, increasing digital skills, which, as I'm sure you know, has no silver bullet, and particularly in your sector, by doing large campaigns, but also by introducing products that are relevant to the market, and also looking at how we can increase device penetration. This also is also looking at how our educational curriculum and higher educational curriculum are designed, and ensuring our children are equipped to participate and contribute to the 4th industrial revolution. We're also looking at how we need to rethink our approach to policies and regulations to enable innovation. This could mean understanding how to set up sandboxes. So these are the foundation of a digital economy. But we also looked at how digital and the 4th industrial revolution will be affecting our economic drivers. And maybe, okay, agriculture, manufacturing, service sector, and tourism. But if I highlight agriculture and manufacturing here, it is clear that technologies like blockchain, like the Internet of Things, are transforming the agricultural sector. And it's giving us immense possibilities on how to predict, prevent, and act. And I know some of the coffee producers in the country have started using some of these technologies for traceability, for example. So in terms of trade of the products of these sectors, we cannot ignore the fact that more and more goods are sold online, making e-commerce a critical channel. So accelerating initiatives that close the e-commerce readiness gap are important, and having it has been largely discussed in the strategy. So in a nutshell and very summarized, this is part of what Digital Ethiopia is.
Thank you so much, Miriam. That was so enlightening. And yes, it's good to understand how Ethiopia is working towards digitally transforming most of the economies, because that's the trend and that's where the world is heading. Thank you for the highlight, and I will get back to you because I have some more questions. I will go to Dominic now. And Dominic, thank you for being with us. And I would love to ask you if what is, as a major stakeholder in the coffee sector, as a major stakeholder to the Coffee and Tea Authority, again, what is your role in assisting the sector meet the challenges head on when they come? And is there any kind of preparation that's in place in accordance with your 15 years strategic plan roadmap? And there is, as Dr. Adunya mentioned last time during our webinar, they are still working on the 15-year strategic plan, but also there is a 1-year roadmap in light of the COVID challenge. So can you say something about that, Dominic? Thank you.
Yes, briefly. As you have known, EU has been involved in coffee for quite some time with a number of programs in the past, which was SIP1, SIP2, SIP3. Which were quite important because it was really refocusing on productivity aspect and refocusing on quality aspect. Now, listening to the last speakers on the e-technology also, we are coming also with some of the important policy which are farm to forks, the notion of coffee traceability, the notion of making sure that we have precision agriculture, to ensure that we integrate the coffee not as a traditional crop, but we also integrate the digital penetration for the coffee production, but also the coffee traceability and trade, and also for the protection of the consumers, as well as for the protection of the farmers, because we forgot sometimes that farmers need to be also protected and get the best share of the coffee production. So that in a nutshell what the EU is supporting. We have a number of programs with Coffee Tea and Authority, as well as with the regions, as well as with some private sector partners, and including also the research, which is quite an important element. As you know, on traceability, the objective is really to boost the quality, the premium quality coffee, and to make sure also that we have traceability for this coffee, and also that, if possible, also that we develop at some stage the geographical indication, which has a better reward for the farmers. In terms of COVID response, we realize that indeed, yes, so far coffee has not been affected very much in terms of trade. But the aspect of mobilization of extension worker, also the mobilization of the farmers is also a very important issue if they are not able to do it in a safe environment. So indeed, we are working on the mobilization of a contingency funding to ensure that we provide security measure both for coffee workers as well as coffee farmers. It's a great sector. It's very interesting. It has a lot of potential. Ethiopia has to really has tremendous leaps to go in terms of not only quality, but also in terms of productivities and also in terms of redistribution. It's extremely important for the country in terms of work, job creation. Estimate vary between 10 million people, around 10 million people employed in coffee. There are even higher figures to that. So we consider this value chain as extremely important, and also knowing also that half of the production of Ethiopia is exported to Europe. So where we have a great appreciation of the coffee, Ethiopian coffee. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dominic. That's just in time. I really appreciate my speaker's time, keeping, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Kellam, I'm coming to you next. Tell us what the global IWCA is doing in terms of researching and understanding the situation where women in coffee are right now, taking into account the challenges that are being faced by women in coffee globally. Then you may as well share some case studies, because I know you had a roundtable with the Asia chapter last week. So if you can share some information in that regard, that will be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to everyone for including the global perspective in this webinar. We very much appreciate the leadership of the Ethiopian Women in Coffee to help connect us all. As Sarah mentioned, I am the Executive Director of the International Women's Coffee Alliance, and we are a global network of independent organizations like the Ethiopian Women in Coffee, all connected and united by the shared IWCA mission to empower women in coffee. As the pandemic began to unfold, the global team immediately checked in with our members to get a sense of what they are seeing and hearing and fearing in their communities. Over 90% of our membership are in coffee producing countries, and the majority are coffee growers and coffee exporters. I think the biggest challenge reported was uncertainty, both uncertainty regarding how the pandemic was unfolding, what it meant for today's market, as well as what it meant for future markets, as some of the speakers have already spoken to. What we do know in terms of, Sarah, your earlier ask of us to speak to solutions, as the UN has recently reported, women's organizations are typically very embedded in communities, and the solution to the COVID crisis and the pricing crisis we were already wrestling with lies in strong community support, timely service delivery, and social solidarity. And to the extent that the IWCA organization is involved in this, we have connected with our network to make sure that information flow is as fluid as possible to facilitate our chapters both having as up-to-date information about what is happening in their countries as we can partner with our partners to find, as well as to support their roles. So that is the roles of the chapters we're hearing is often to provide reassurance and information connection to some of the most vulnerable populations in rural communities. And lastly, we are also playing a dual role in service to our members to partner with our international partners and our consuming market partners, such as the National Coffee Association here in the United States, to ensure that coffee consumption and its role in empowering communities stays on the radar of consumers as they work through uncertain times all over the globe, to make sure to remember that not only does coffee connect us all, simply drinking coffee and making coffee purchases can help empower and fuel and continue the coffee supply chain. In terms of a few examples, after recently checking in with our Asian chapters, we've learned, much like the UN identified, women organizations are embedded in the community and are driving solutions. We were able to hear some very innovative stories from across our Asian chapters. For example, in the Philippines, where cafe leaders there have are learning to pivot, and whereas baristas are typically the front line in engaging consumers, many baristas have transitioned to be the social media personnel that are helping people who are at home to become aware and continue to have access to coffee, identifying where government approved community health opportunities to access coffee are available, and helping to diversify businesses to not only innovate in response to the current crisis, but perhaps continue to grow domestic consumption as a means to not only support the local production in coffee consuming countries, but also continue to drive consumption overall. So in short, to recap, what we're seeing across our global network is that community-focused organizations such as IWCA chapters with women's leadership are helping to drive change, not only through ensuring a flow of information out to the most vulnerable and most concerned communities, but also to drive innovation to help the coffee industry emerge stronger from this crisis. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Kellam. Thank you so much. We're so happy to have you with us. This is a platform for everyone that talks about coffee, and of course, specifically about women too. So yeah, I love the innovative approach the Philippine women in coffee are implementing, where they can maintain the jobs they can still pay their staff and create opportunity. That's an amazing story, and I hope everyone listening from every corner of the world would take this as a lesson learned and maybe share it with someone that's facing the same challenge running a business in the context of COVID. Thank you, Callum. Now we'll be running a message from our sponsor, USAID Feed the Future Ethiopia, and come back to you in a few seconds. Thank you. I'm back. Now we're going to have Darren on the screen from Cup of Excellence. Darren, are you there? Is Darren? Yes.
Yes, I am. Yes.
Yeah. Darren, tell us about Alliance for Cup of Excellence and briefly, because people need to know what you're doing. An amazing job, as also known as the Olympics of Coffee, which is an amazing name I found while reading about your work. Tell us about your institution, and then tell us what happened during Cup of Excellence Ethiopia and the opportunities that lie within the winning coffees and for overall the Ethiopian coffees. Thank you, Darren.
Sure. And thank you, Sarah, for the invitation and all of those who organized this, and for Feed the Future for sponsoring this, and delighted to be here. The Alliance for Coffee Excellence owns and operates the Cup of Excellence, which is an international competition focusing on smallholder farmers around the world. We began in 1999. We're based in Portland, Oregon. We're a nonprofit. We are a membership-driven organization, which means that coffee roasters, importers, exporters around the world support our membership through the purchase of online auction lots of coffees. We began in Brazil, and we quickly moved into Latin America, Central America over the early 2000s, and we've added a few countries along the way, and began working in Africa with Rwanda around 2008, and Burundi, and finally, to our ecstatic excitement, we were able to add Ethiopia, the birthplace of coffee, in 2020, and the project really began in 2018 with a steering committee in Seattle at Expo, especially Coffee Association Expo, where we began to get stakeholders together to talk about this project. And that's when we began our relationship with Feed the Future and Ian Chesterman, who was on the organizing committee. And we began the process to onboard Ethiopia for this 2020 competition. And our focus, our mission, obviously, is to discover and reward smallholder farmers, coffee producers around the world through a quality competition, a very highly scrutinized coffee competition with multiple phases, with a national jury that's trained to cut their own coffees, and then the addition of an international jury that comes to the host countries, representing anywhere from 18 to 24 different countries on any one given jury. And there we analyze through a sensory process and identify the top lots of coffee. And then those coffees that move on and make it to the finals are then auctioned about 5 weeks later on an online auction platform that we've been invigorating over the last few years, and hope to eventually move it into more of a blockchain type of work. I think before blockchain, we were already doing blockchain because we can do end-to-end from farmer to roaster and even consumer, just not on the digital landscape, but certainly on the analog landscape, we've been able to do this for the last 20 years. Obviously, due to the pandemic, we had to pivot very quickly and modify our program since we were not able to bring an international jury to Addis and complete the final phase. With over 1,458 coffees entered from individual producers and cooperatives, we had to initially go through a pre-selection process, and we were able to identify the top 150 coffees out of the 1,458 coffees. And at that point, soon after, we had to revise the program, have the 150 coffees sent here to our lab in Portland, Oregon, where we put together a team of cuppers to select the top 30 coffees. And then at that point, that would have been the national phase. We moved the coffees to a global jury of our head judges around the world to pick the final lots of the coffees, which will be auctioned here coming on June 25th for the Cup of Excellence lots. And then the national winner lots, coffees that scored from 85 to 86, will be going from June 23rd to June 26th, coming up here this month. So a lot of excitement so far, a lot of interest. Essentially, we have over 50 different countries represented that are registered bidders for the upcoming auction. And our membership usually represents around 35, 40 different countries around the world. So we have the largest amount of bidders signed up for the upcoming auction in the history of the Cup of Excellence, and the largest amount of producers that have ever entered too. So there's just so much excitement and anticipation for this upcoming auction, despite all of the issues with the pandemic. We just keep marching forward and look to see, hopefully, a really exciting auction. So.
And I will have one more question for you before you go. Like, as a highly trusted and globally recognized competition organization, what did you find unique to the Cup of Excellence in Ethiopia? Like, what was your unique experience running the Cup of Excellence competition and cupping the first 1,458 coffees before they get to 150 here in Ethiopia? What different experience did you have as an institution? Thank you.
Sure, great question. Our head judge Paul Songer really led the campaign early with the initial pre-selection, and a lot of the information that I received from him was one, the expanse of the regions that were included. We had a very good program for awareness building before, and I think that's why we were able to get so many different lots entered from so many different regions, from Diradawa to Agaro to Chefe to Jima. A lot of inclusion. This was very exciting for us. We all know that there are certain regions within Ethiopia that are renowned and very famous for their quality, but we'd love to see all of the diversity of regions involved and included in the initial year. It's a very difficult program to get to the top. So as you can probably see from the results, there were certain centers of quality like West RC and Gucci and Rodeo, but also coffees from Jima that were included. And so I think that was exciting to see the interest level, the amount of producers that entered, predominantly smallholder farmers with less than 4 hectares. If we go back and look at a lot of the statistics, there definitely were some larger groups and co-ops, but there also were smallholder farmers that I think represented what's really happening in the Ethiopian coffee sector. From a personal perspective, I also I was employed to cup because of the situation. I've previously been a cupper and been a judge on many COE juries before becoming the executive director. And what I found, and also what Paul Songer, the head judge, found, was some of the distinct differences that we found in some of the regions in terms of coffee quality and the flavor and profiles were a little bit different than maybe what I expected in the past with my experience in Ethiopia, especially with the natural process coffees being exceptionally bright, very acidic for natural process, very clear, clean coffees, just excellent quality. So I think those were the big takeaways for me. And overall, just the interest level internationally right now, where we have so many people from pretty much every continent in the world that's interested in getting these samples, which are now currently landing, and people are starting to go through and cup these coffees in anticipation of the competition, and we're getting a lot of incredible feedback on the cup quality and the diversity of flavors. And so yeah, those are a couple of the takeaways for me.
Thank you so much, Darren. That's very insightful. And yes, Ethiopia is the land of origins, and we are the origin of coffee. And we expected this experience to be so unique for everyone involved. So knowing that you enjoyed it, and the diversity, the flavor profiles, and of course, one of the things that came up at the end, as a result, we have small farmers winning the Cup of Excellence, which is really exciting for all of us in the coffee industry in Ethiopia. So thank you for sharing that, and I'll get back to you with some more questions during our Q&A session. Thank you for taking your time, and that was perfectly in time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ahadu, you will be my next speaker. You already know what I'm going to ask, because we are both coffee roasters at origin, and the current coffee market is really challenging. So what prospectus do we have as value-added coffee, roasted coffee, packed coffee that's really done here in Ethiopia at origin? For other origin countries as well, it will be a good experience as an industry leader if you share your experience, personal experience as a company, and of course as an Ethiopian doing business from Ethiopia. How do you can take the stage now?
Thank you, Sarah, for having me. It's actually a very timely conversation, and particularly in this unprecedented time of COVID. Well, just to probably give a little bit of background about the sector in general. I mean, obviously, a lot of people know why people should go into value addition. It's actually a natural transition, going into manufacturing and doing a lot more value addition, because I guess in return, it brings considerably a substantial amount of money to the country. But we're still in a very, very infant phase of roasting or value addition in Ethiopia, or the rest of a lot of our producing countries in Africa. We still have 99% of coffee still exported as green coffee. And of course, everybody knows about Ethiopia. Everybody knows we're the land of origin, but everybody knows about Ethiopia as a green coffee producer. Nobody knows Ethiopia as a coffee roaster. So I think that's a transition that we need to do it. But if you're looking at the trends, I think we're noticing more and more people are becoming extremely sophisticated. People want to know where their coffee is coming from. I think a lot of folks have mentioned traceability. So people want to know where it's coming. Even a lot of the retailers want to know where the source is coming from. Is it a certified coffee, or is it environmental friendly? And they're asking what kind of labor was used, the labor fees, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think some folks also touched upon it as well. I think that the biggest move that we're actually seeing it is technology is becoming a great equalizer. For instance, at Moyi, about a year ago, we're actually the first coffee company to introduce the blockchain technology using coins that is we're actually looking at from harvest to the washing station, to storage, to roasting, to transportation. Actually, a lot of international buyers can actually scan it, and they can actually follow, how much we spent on each of these value chain. And in fact, they can actually connect, and they're looking at our farmers as well. We currently registered about 1,200 farmers. And in fact, we're actually putting an additional functionality now that you can actually look at the farmer and you can tip the farmer back for what he's producing. But on the flip side, I think and that one of the biggest challenges that we see as a value addition, it's an economics of scale game. And if you're looking at it, the top 5-6 multinational controlling a lot of the volume that you see as actually at the retailer. So how do you compete in the source, unless you actually bring your own niche in terms of how you want to do it. And I think although Ethiopia is still a mecca for specialty coffee, where we have a lot of varieties, but we still need to work on the sciences as well, and how do we make sure that we catered it to the specific target or the specific consumer. Whether it's in the Middle East, they're actually accustomed to X kind of test and profile as well. So how do you break it? And what is the edge? Because I mean, like a lot that we see on the specialty market, even on a green coffee, I think we're selling a story as well. So what makes your story makes it sexier for people to actually connect and love this coffee as well. So I mean, there's a lot of resources and funding that need to be invested, and I think the governments are actually, from the Ethiopia perspective, and we're seeing some movement towards this angle as well, and actually promoting value addition as well, because technically 2-3 years ago it was non-existent. So there's a lot of movement that I think people actually now know, that we can see the amount of inquiries, although still not a lot, that is coming, knocking out doors as well. And the other one is actually just the industry was not in existence a few years ago. I think I mentioned it's an economics of scale. Do you have the technology to actually produce, a roasted coffee to the standards of a lot of these retailers as well? Because it's also not roasting the coffee as well. I mean, there's a lot of science that that is happening on the roasted one as well. I mean, a lot of these roasted machines are actually working in a computer based as well, that how it's roasted, at what temperature it's roasted, and how it's packed, and how do you keep your freshness. So I think there's a lot of technology that needs to, that actually gets applied on it as well. And I think we're not there before. That technology is now coming in as well. And in particular, I mean, the good thing is Ethiopia is also a big coffee drinker sector as well. But I mean, we're also seeing it in the local market as well. The market is actually changing, and you see a lot of these condominiums and people actually now, and a lot of the youth that is actually using now a roasted ground coffee as well, that was not used before. So I think we also have the support from the local market as well, in terms of giving us some of a buffer to actually compete on the international market as well. But internationally, if you're looking at it, and I mean, how do we address logistics, for instance? There's a big difference. I always say economics of scale. There's a big difference between a sea transportation and an air transportation. So until you get to a sea transportation where you actually get 10,000, 20,000 kilos, there's a lot of work that needs to happen as well. Can you compete by selling 50 kilos and 60 kilos and protect your market as well? So I think that's a big thing as well, until you actually get there as well. Also looking at the supply chain. I mean, who you're looking at, who you're selling it, where you're storing it. Shelves are very expensive in these retailers as well. I mean, if a shelf is empty, how do you make sure that you fill it up right away as well? So a lot of these things need to be done, but I think there's a lot of movement that is happening now in this roasting era as well, that hopefully we actually breaking the glass ceiling, as they say. So hopefully more and more actually coming in, and Ethiopia is actually, as it's known for its green coffee, that the value addition will actually come a little bit. Even if we can do 5, 6, 7% of our coffee as a value added coffee, it's a tremendous support for the country as well. The second question I think you mentioned, I think transitioning to that as well, is also a very, very tough time and COVID when it comes to roasted coffee as well. Because I mean, the number one reason for it being is the shelf life for our product is much shorter than for the green coffee per se. So a lot of our takers that are actually, unless we become very creative, a lot of the roasteries is closed. For instance, on the Moi side, one of our biggest takers was the University of Amsterdam system. So all the universities is closed. So how do you become address it, because your shelf life is very much limited. And then the same thing in the local market as well. If you're looking at the local market, no tourists are coming in. airplanes are not coming in, so duty frees are coming in, and you're sitting now in Cascara, I'm sure it's probably open right now. There's not a lot of tourism as well. So how do you make sure that you become very creative and navigate through it as well? I mean, for instance, you know, how do you do online? How do you do the door-to-door delivery? Can you shift and compete from a high-end coffee to the low-end coffee as well? But even before we get there, I mean, COVID is a very interesting time as well. I mean, for us, we talk about, you know, the operation, but before we even go in an operation from an Ethiopian perspective, there's a big aspect of the people side of it as well. How do you transport your roasters or your people that are actually managing your roasting facility from, you know, point A to point B? Are they taking a public transportation, and then you have to worry about their safety as well? So how do you address it? How do you address social distancing in this crowded manufacturing space as well? So all of these things, it needs to be, you know, thought of. I mean, we're learning the hard way, but I think it's going to be a very different experience than what we're doing right now. We're managing our roasting facility just electronically, like how we you know, communicating to our buyers or to a lot of the audience that we're seeing online as well. So I think we're learning and we're adapting as well.
Thank you so much, Ahadu. Yes, we're learning the hardest way possible. Yes, we had to cope up with the really challenging environment that's happening due to shops closing, hotels, the service industry not active, flights not really. We can say there is no passenger flight anymore. It's mainly cargo, as we know from Ethiopian, right? Passenger flights are rare and in between. So yes, as a leader of a company that is really working towards promoting Ethiopian coffees as a coffee roasted at origin, it's going to be very difficult if your main source of income was the export. And as you mentioned, if the export also was affected by universities that you supply are closing, of course, the retail stores are still open, but the specialty coffee aspect of it is not a retail per se. So I can see and understand because I'm in it too, but there is hope. That's why we are here. There is hope, and there are so many opportunities to learn and innovate. And what I have to ask you one more question before you go, because we're going to bring in Ashanafi, and he will give us a different perspective on marketing and branding. But what new ways of doing business are you implementing practically right now so that we learn from your ongoing experiences in that regard?
One of it is actually, we need to look at a different market segment as well. So rather than going in a high end, and how do we actually tap into a lot of these retailers as well, and how do we do it an online shop? I mean, that's the big piece that we're actually moving in as well. I think just in general also, I mean, I'm sure you noticing it as a roaster as well. How do we work with the authorities and with the banks as well, that you know, that we can react very quickly in this time as well, before that we actually supply, maintain the supply chain as well, because of the supply chain is so complicated at this point. And how do you make sure that input is also going up as well? So input is going up, demand is going down. So there's a big gap in there as well. So how do you bridge it? How do you bridge it is actually something else that we need to do it. But we're actually looking at a different market segment. Something else that we're actually looking at right now is, if you have the capacity, can you do a white label per se for other clients as well? So the different revenue streams in order to get, the business going.
Thank you, Ahadu. Thank you so much. And thank you for giving us a really interesting perspective on the roasted origin and value-added aspect of Ethiopian coffees. Ashanafi, I'm coming to you now. I think you will be our last speaker.
Right.
So, hi, Ashanafi.
Hi, Sarah. Sarah, thank you so much. First, I would like to say also thank you to Women in Coffee, Ethiopian Women in Coffee. Thank you so much for organizing such an event so that we can talk and share ideas. You guys are doing amazing work. Please keep it up. And also, I would like to say thank you for all attendants who joined us today in this webinar, either through YouTube or any social media platform. I heard that some buyers also joined us today. Thank you so much for your time. And also I heard that a lot of exporters are also joined us today. So thank you for your time too. Before I get into some details about the topic that I given, just let me say a few things about my background so you can understand me better in the next 5 to 7 minutes. I have been in coffee business for the last 17 years, out of which 10 years I was a coffee buyer in US, and 7 years I'm an exporter in Ethiopia. So so today when I talk from two perspectives, from the exporter perspective and from the buyer perspective. So I'll throw some ideas from these two perspectives. Before I get into the details, just let me give you one report that I got this morning from Ethiopian Coffee Association, which is good. Of course, reports coming out these days about coffee volume and coffee report. And for instance, the report that put out by ICO all shows that coffee demand globally is declining due to this crisis. But I want you to know that a sales quantity from Ethiopia is not that affected. That's what the report showed us. So that is a good news. So far, we are doing so good. Everything is working perfectly at this point, even though there are some challenges in Ethiopia. Also at this point, I would like to say thank you to our coffee buyers who are keeping their contracts, honoring their contracts even through this difficult time. So that said, let me jump into my topic. I'm going to talk a few things about marketing, how we can position our company, our business, our coffee business in global coffee market during this COVID and beyond. That is the area that I want to talk. And first, let me address a few things, how we can position ourselves in this global market during the COVID time. I'm going to give you 3 important marketing strategy, I would say, which might help you, especially coffee exporters who are in this webinar today. That we need to be mindful during this difficult time. And the first thing we need to do is, we need to build our relationship, our existing relationship with our clientele. It's a time that we need to focus more on relationship, because during this crisis time, as you know, things are changing and we are forced into a digital only kind of business style, and there is no face-to-face time with clients, traveling and international trade. Everything like that is put on pause at the moment. So it's time to adjust ourselves to the new normal. And that new normal, I think, is just to build that trust remotely during this crisis time. So exporters and buyers, at this time, we need to build our trust, our relationship with each other, because that's the only way we can continue doing business. We cannot meet each other. We cannot cup coffee together and all that kind of thing. So I think the best way now is just to build our trust. And for that, I think frequent communication is very important with our clients. We don't have to just call them and email clients, for selling coffee, but we have to call them to say hello and, understand their situation and everything like that. And this is the time that we need to see each other that way. And the other thing that might help to strengthen our relationship might be being flexible. We need to be flexible to accommodate the needs of our clients. So this is very important. So the second strategy that we need to do during this COVID is focus more on markets or countries where the spread of COVID is slowed down or slowing down, and markets which are already opened up. For instance, Asia and also most part of Europe right now are slow. The COVID spread is slowing down, and it's kind of like, they passed that peak. So it's good, to focus that market for the next 1 month or so, and see how we can do there as we keep our relationship to all other countries as well, because other countries, there is a close down and they haven't reached their peak. So some buyers might not buy coffee at this moment. So better to focus on the market that where the spread of COVID is slowed down is a best strategy, which saves our time and energy. So the third strategy I just want to give out is I think it's time for us to revise our marketing strategies at continual basis. So this is very important. Our marketing strategy should be revised. When I say marketing strategy, I'm talking about usually I say 7 P's of coffee marketing mix. It's important to know those 7 mixes and see how we can strategize, in those areas. For instance, product strategy, pricing strategy, promotional strategy, processing strategy, packaging strategy, positioning strategy, and people strategy, which is staffing. So we need to go into these details. I cannot go into details of this this moment because I have limited time, but we need to revise our strategy in this area and make sure our business is running accordingly. Before I pass to the post-COVID strategies, I just want to say a few words about a Cup of Excellence. Darren is with us today. Thank you, Darren, for joining us today. So there are few opportunities presented to us due to Cup of Excellence. So I just want to say a few things on that. As you know, the Ethiopian Cup of Excellence 2020 is the first historic national coffee competition. I know COVID gave us some challenge during the process, but I'm sure it will be a great success at the end. Again, thank you, Darren. Thank you, Dr. Adunya, and all the stakeholders who are involved to make this happen. So if you see the current, Cup of Excellence 2020 has revealed some important points about top Ethiopian coffees. And if you check out the top 10, for instance, or the top 12 coffees in the winning list, you see almost all of the coffees came from 2 regions in Ethiopia. Check it out. That is important information that we need to learn and focus and market as the next step. Those coffee came from Sidama area, to be specific, in Bensa, Bombay, Sagara, and Bora. These are the areas, and mainly it's Bensa area. So most 1 to 3 are Sidama coffee. And also the rest are from West RC, to be specific, from Nansebo, Werka area. So by the way, this is not an accident. This speak a volume about this coffee and in the coffee areas. So we need to be cautious, about coffees coming from this area. So my message for coffee buyers is, if you see coffee coming from these areas, Bansa, Bombay, Sagara, Bora, these areas, in West RC, Nansebo, and Werka, I strongly recommend you to buy it. You won't be disappointed as long as the coffee is processed well. I'm talking about not the winning, the top, coffees, but any coffee that coming from these areas are amazing coffee. So watch out of these coffees as you buy coffees in the future. So also for my Ethiopian friends, I want to say a few things. And if you still have some coffees left from these areas, even though it is not in that competition, but if the coffee is from those areas, you should know who you should talk to and how you properly communicate coffees from these areas. There is a market for those coffees, which pays a premium price. I'm getting, by the way, some emails, some phone calls from buyers abroad, and most of them are asking still, hey, do you have any coffee from these areas? That is a question right now. By the way, as Sarah mentioned earlier, this is a kind of Olympics. Once a person take the Olympic record or Olympic title, that title stays for a while. And I know, from other experience, other countries' experience, producers who won Cup of Excellence, every year they come out saying, hey, I'm the winner of the 2016. They say like that and use it as a tool to sell their coffee. So winners, I know some winners are in this webinar as well. I heard, some farmers, joined us today as well. So yeah, this is a title for you. So you can use it for upcoming years as long as your coffee is great. So and the other important thing that this Cup of Excellence revealed is the whole top 10, winners are coffee farmers, except one. So this by itself is means a lot. And by the way, those of you who definitely win, buying this coffee at the end, definitely you're gonna have a good story about your coffee, because these coffees are produced by coffee farmers, small coffee farmers. So let me proceed to the post-COVID period strategy. I just want to mention a few things on that, and I would wrap up. So obviously, we won't stuck into this crisis for the rest of our life. I'm sure at some point, this COVID will be contained. Maybe vaccination will be found, and things will come back to normal. I'm positive, I'm an optimistic person, so I think like that. So it's good for Ethiopians, coffee players, to plan and see beyond the crisis. We don't have to just think everything is over. There is life will continue and things will come back again. So I believe Ethiopia coffee industry should come out stronger from the COVID-19 crisis, and we need to work towards that goal. Let me tell you in short how Vietnam became a coffee giant after huge crisis time. When the Vietnam War ended in 1975, the country was on its knees and the economy was literally collapsed. In 1986, the Communist Party carried out a U-turn, placing a big bet on coffee. That's what helped transform a Vietnamese economy. In just 30 years, their market share jumped from 0.1% to 20%, making them a world's second largest exporter. So we need also to place a big bet on our coffee, on Ethiopian coffee, during this crisis time. And we have to come out, as stronger out of this COVID crisis. So to do that, I'm gonna make some bold suggestions here, like 5 suggestions that Ethiopian industry or Ethiopian government should take in order for us to come out stronger and be at better global market position. So number 1 suggestion that I want to make is Ethiopia is the birthplace, as we all know. And personally, I believe it is time to petition the name Coffee Arabica. This helps our marketing strategy in the future. I strongly believe this misnaming Coffee Arabica continued to present day exploiting Ethiopian coffee heritage. So Ethiopia needs to stand up and rewrite our own coffee history. It's not Coffee Arabica. Maybe it's Coffee Topica or Coffee Abyssinica. And it's time for petitioning. So this is a bold statement I just want to make here, because this is something that's going to help us in post-COVID period crisis. So this is very important. The other thing that I just want to suggest here is we need to have a national coffee day in Ethiopia, one day declared by parliament, in which the birthday of coffee will be fully celebrated among industry people, nationally and internationally. Imagine, if coffee is, if the birthplace of coffee is in Ethiopia, so there must be a birthday for coffee. So we need to celebrate coffee, and we need to tell the whole world about coffee on that day. So I just suggest, that has to be declared by parliament, and one day should be dedicated for coffee in Ethiopia. The third suggestion I just want to make is we need to closely study the cup profile of more than 5,000 coffee varieties, which the researcher called accessions we have in our gene banks, and get them out of to the market. We need to get them out to the market. We have a lot of coffee varieties. We have a lot of coffees that the world not even seen so far. So we have a place of origin. We have thousands and thousands of varieties out there, and we need to work on that and get out of to the market. Most people in coffee industry believe that Ethiopia has lots of unrevealed varieties somewhere in those wild forests. So we need to work on that. And when I think of this, I believe, honestly, I believe there is some game changer coffee somewhere in Ethiopia. You know, in coffee industry, geisha coffee, when first found in 2004, it was, by the way, found after the auction, Panamanian auction. That became a game changer for Panamanian coffee industry. So I truly believe that there is some game changer coffee in Ethiopia somewhere, someplace, which has unique cup profile, which can shock the world. So we need to work toward that. And the last 2 points I just want to mention, the fourth point is innovation in processing is the way for better quality. Innovation in processing. This can only be achieved through assistance from government programs, investments from exporters, and commitments from donor organizations. So we need to work on the processing aspect. Processing for me is like cracking a code of the bean. We can crack the code of the bean and get the flavor out of the bean if we know how to do it. So we need a lot of training on that, and a lot of, I know what is happening, everywhere in Ethiopia and elsewhere, but we need to work on that so that we can get a better quality out of Ethiopia. The last point I just want to make, fifth point, we need more institutions which support the coffee sector in Ethiopia, such as Q processing institutions, Q grading institutions, world-class coffee research institution. I say world-class coffee research institution, and so on. So unless we don't have such kind of institutions, it's hard. It's going to be repeating all the same traditional thing all over again and again. We need institutions which support what we plan ahead. So this is very important. If we do these things in addition to what we are already doing, I think we'll emerge stronger than ever in global market, in coffee market. That's from me for now. I will explain more at a Q&A time. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Ashanafi. Thank you so much. A renowned marketer I agree with you. There are so many areas we need to address in many ways. That's why we're going to have this kind of conversation regularly, like every month, because we need to tap into the resources we have together and then collaborate and bring change. Otherwise, being in a webinar, talking about issues and then leaving them to be maybe a record or on a shelf will not help the coffee sector. Thank you for a very insightful discussion, Ashanafi. That was interesting. Now I will bring everybody to the question and answer session. Is everybody here? Yeah. I will start from Dr. Adunya. Dr. Adunya, there is a question for you specific to COVID challenges. Getahun from Fairtrade asked, given the fact that the COVID prevalence is higher among drivers and the logistics is highly affected, how are you planning to address this issue, and how is your institution prepared to mitigate the impact in a way we transport our coffees from one place to the other and in the supply chain overall? That's the question from Getahun.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah, and also Getahun for a very nice questions that we are struggling with. The very good news that I have is there is no any demand and supply imbalance in our coffee sector, and also there is no any such significant cancellation of coffee contracts so far. So the problems that we have been struggling for the last 2 weeks was mainly on the transport issue and the arrangement of logistics and also containers for packing their own coffee. So this issue has already been brought to the Export Council Committee, and then the Export Council Committee has already developed an ad hoc committee that's actually working specifically on transport and logistics, in which case our authority is part and parcel of that committee. So they have already clearly identified what are the major bottlenecks which actually affected the transport system. So last week they just presented the main problems where exactly this kind of problem is created. Then based on that, starting from last week, the committee is exhaustively working on how to solve, and then now the transport, particularly the train, and also the transport, particularly the flights, cargo, they are actually working to the best of their level to solve our own problem. So in this case, the ad hoc committee has already been established and closely working with authority and also reporting to the Prime Minister office. And therefore, starting from last week, the problem is to some extent is solved.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions that I have to address?
Yeah, I will come back to you for one more question, but I have to go to Miriam. Miriam, I have a question for you from our audience, Abarra. He wants to know if enabling the e-commerce platform is possible in a short term for coffee to be an online retail commodity, at least in the short term. Is there any possibility we might see that very soon?
Thank you for this question, Sarah. So I think everybody knows that there's been the introduction of the Electronic World Trade Platform by Mr. Jack Ma back in November 2019. And that was an important first step, and it will serve as a catalyst for broader development of the e-commerce in the digital economy, and specifically for coffee. Having said that, I'm sure you also know that very recently the Electronic Transaction Proclamation has been approved by Parliament, which is a proclamation that will be governing electronic transactions, electronic receipts, electronic signatures. So that is a major enabling ecosystem for starting marketplaces for coffee and starting e-commerce for coffee. There's also been a lot of progress, and it's the only time where I can say thanks to the pandemic. The acceleration it brought in digital was quite impressive. So the National Bank of Ethiopia very recently approved an e-payment directive, which is a payment instrument issuer directive. And they are in the process of issuing or drafting a payment operator directive. So that will tremendously improve the digital payment ecosystem as well. So can we quickly enable e-commerce in the coffee value chain? This is really something I would like to see very quickly. I'm sure the Coffee and Tea Authority is also thinking about it, and we are, and I think the ball is back into the private sector to also prepare themselves on how they can do that and how they can take advantage of that. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you so much. That's exactly what we wanted to hear. Yeah, we cannot say like, thank God COVID is here, but yes, there is a reason also to say, to be grateful in situations like this. There is something good coming out of that, and we're grateful for that, because this is everybody's dream. I want to sell my coffee online, sitting from home, having a warehouse somewhere that is really like a dream come true. So we look forward to that day. I think everybody's excited about that. I will, Dominic, if you're still there, I will be reading a comment from one audience member. Matthew Thornton asked, only boosting production of high quality coffee does not guarantee the market. Is there a plan to help sell? And how is EU engaging with the Coffee and Tea Authority to help our farmers sell with a better price at the same time in volumes, because we cannot keep stock of old harvest and again this new harvest on top of that. So what are the strategies in place? Dominic and Dr. Adunya, you might all both come in and give me a brief answer to this one. I might give Dominic the chance first.
Okay, just quickly on that, is that part of the discussion that we have had with CTA is to equip basically the main coffee producers, the main farmers, and the main extension people having extension farmer scheme with what we call a farm management system. So we come back, of course, to the aspect of traceability, but we come back also to the aspect of precision farming to make sure that we monitor the farm practices, the level of input, the level of coffee pruning that we are doing, the level of coffee care to your crop at field level, not at farm level, but at field level, because you have farmers with many fields which are distributed all over the place. And therefore, when we do that, then you can speak meaningfully of traceability, and you can speak also of meaningful trading of coffee, of prime quality traceable coffee. And that draw in one.
We lost you, Dominic. Is he there?
Yeah. Are you?
Okay.
Is it clear now? Hello? Is it better?
Now it's better, yes. It's better now.
So by doing so, you basically make sure that not only you have a traceable coffee, but you make sure that also your farm practices are also inbuilt in the system, and that you can also sanction both gain of quality and gain of productivity at farmers level, at field level. So that is one of the strategy. The second big strategy basically is the platform of dialogue that Dr. Adunya spoke earlier, the PPP aspect, when we need to establish really constant dialogue between the public and the private to make sure that we can reinforce the public money where farmers have difficulties, and where basically the private sector money, where farmers have no difficulty, to leave that to the private sector to play a role, as well as to bring the result of the research, also some of the coffee research. Some of the speakers spoke about the genetic stock. So there's a lot of gain to be done with a new genetic stock coming up, a new coffee coming for it, to revitalize basically the coffee orchards. I think that are the two major points that we are looking at with CTA. Over.
Thank you, Dominic. That was, yeah, I think you addressed the question really well. If Dr. Adunya has something to say, I will give you the chance to say.
Yeah, thank you once again, Sarah. This is still a very relevant question and quite pertinent, because we cannot compete internationally without producing a very good quality coffee. So as Dominic already mentioned, the EU Cafe project has 4 to 5 objectives, out of which one is how to maintain the quality or how to produce a very good quality coffee. So in that case, we are also doing how the farmers are practicing to produce a very good quality coffee. This year, we have already started to exercise that farmers who are producing coffee in a very good quality, they are paid off, because last year the price for a red cherry was about 10 to 12 birr. This year, for those who are actually produced a very good quality coffee, they sold for about 25, 26, and 27 birr per kilo. So this is an indication how Ethiopia Coffee and Tea Authority is working with EU and all other stakeholders on how to improve the quality of coffee. And if you, we can provide you special data on how our specialty coffee is the percentage of specialty coffee increased this year. Last year, the percentage of our specialty coffee is 12%. This year, it's doubled. The percentage is doubled than last year. So this is how we are really working on how to improve the quality of Ethiopian coffee. It's not only increasing the volume, but also we are working on how to improve the quality. That's why Darin has already spoke that the very amazing coffee has been obtained in the history of Ethiopia, in history of the Cup of Excellence this year. So this is on the indication how we are really working very exhaustively to please our farmers and also to get something out of this coffee sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adunya. Thank you so much. I will go to the next question, and Ahadu, this is your turn. Michael asked, what do you recommend, because the value added, in this case, roasted and packed coffee export is really not promoted very well. And Michael is writing, I think, from Europe and UK, is that we haven't done a good job advocating for value-added coffees market in the export scenario. So what should be done in your opinion? What is lacking there, and how would you what do you recommend in that case? And Salomon Kasa asked, what are roasters in Ethiopia doing to boost the export in general? Because roasted coffee export is one thing, and green coffee export is another, but at the end of the day, both is coffee export. So what are you doing? Are you collaborating to improve and boost the export? That's a question from Salomon Kasa. I will come back to you with another question, but if you can answer this too, will be very helpful.
Sure. So the first thing is, I think it goes back to the point that I was trying to raise earlier. I just don't think Ethiopian coffee in a roasted format was not promoted well. So I think both the private sector as well as the government, I mean, Dr. Agenyo's, Dr. Adunya is on the line as well. So there's been a big push, including some of the laws need to be changed about a year ago. So there's a lot of movement that has been coming into the value-added coffee space as well. In particular, I mean, because if you're looking at it in the past, I mean, almost 99 point, just if you're looking at 3-4 years, going back 3-4 years, 99.47, almost 100% of the coffee was not exported in the roasted format as well. So it is just now emerging into this thing as well. So the government is also paying attention towards it as well. So the first step is some of the laws need to be amended. How do we make sure that we avail to our roasters the best quality coffee, which was non-existent because the whole law was catered towards the green coffee space as well. Now we're seeing more and more roasters as well. So I think we've seen some improvement from the law, amending the law as well to cater for the roasted space. I think we have to do a lot more work around logistics and just auxiliary services around the roasted coffee as well, to make sure that we are competitive in the roasted space as well, to make sure that we have a shelf space, that we have a good suppliers, both on the science side as well, and how do we make sure that we blend the right product, or how do we make sure that we have a consistent product? Do we have educated personnel from our roasters and from our cuppers that are actually investing a lot more, because the science have changed quite a bit and it's changing every single day. Do we have the right equipment and the right resources as well? So that's something else that we need to make sure. And also on the packaging, on the packaging, meaning on the marketing side as well. And I think a lot of the digital revolution that a lot of folks have mentioned it earlier as well, I think that would help us to make sure that we have a platform and we have an avenue to market our roasted coffee to the international market.
So much again. I think our audience is very interactive. I cannot really bring every question to the platform right now, but there are so many comments and questions coming. They seem to be very excited about having this conversation, and I think it will encourage us to do this even more. My next question will be to Masarat, if you come back, Masarat. Okay, we promote, we brand, we produce quality coffee. Then now it is more digital than ever because of COVID. We don't have the opportunity to go to trade fairs and expos, and we don't have this in-person communication with our buyers. So I know the Ethiopian Women in Coffee was doing such a wonderful training on enabling women exporters, not only women exporters, also others in the sector, to be able to understand their coffee and communicate really well and negotiate to export their coffees. Can you say a few things about that, like in general, not in terms of only women in coffee, but what should be done in terms of communication in closing a deal? Because there was a question from our audience asking, as I was trying to reach to exporters and there was no communication, and the ones I approached, there was no really the capacity to negotiate. So this is an Ethiopian who is concerned because he was trying to import coffee from the other side of the world. So how can we address those communication gaps now that it is becoming more digital than ever, Masarat? Is Masarat there? No? We lost her. Okay, in that case, if we lost, she's back. She's good. A little technical glitch, bear with us. Are we having her? No? Okay, I think we should continue. That would be an interesting topic to discuss, but Ashanafi, you can also say something about that, because as far as I know, you have a coffee package labeled in your name. That's how far his branding goes. His buyers label their coffee bags Ashu. I've seen that in Europe, I think. And the question I just forwarded to Masarat will go to you. How do you think we can be competitive in terms of negotiating, closing the deal, and understanding the quality of our coffee and putting out there what it deserves in the market? So can you say something about it?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. This is important point to be aware as far as exporters. We need to educate ourselves as exporters and as coffee professionals from time to time, especially the sales team has to be educated, well educated. We have to be aware of our products. We have to know how to express our product. These days, I don't think the days of selling coffee by its only name is going to continue for a long time, because our customers, they know a lot about different coffees and regions and everything. So we should be able to describe our coffee. We should be able to tell why our coffees are better, and also we should be able to describe our coffee based on cup profile. At the end of the day, what sells is not the name Sidama, Yirgachefe, Guji itself, but what it tastes is what going to be very important. So our sales team, the Ethiopian exporters who are selling coffee, they should be aware of those kind of things before they get into any kind of conversation. And communication is very important. Responding email is very important. Having call conversation is very important. Also, I would say sometimes I think we need training on those kind of things, because unless and otherwise we have a good strategy on how to close the deal, it's going to be so difficult. It's going to be so difficult. So I think Women in Coffee is doing a great job on this. You guys are giving training for women and all other exporters in Ethiopia. And I suggest, to keep on doing that because we need more training to make our exporters aware of those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashanafi. Darin, I have one more question for you, and then we'll go to Kellam I will give you each 1 minute. Darren, Getahun asked, what does smallholder, how do you define smallholder farmer at the Cup of Excellence? And since it is mainly the smallholder farmers that came at the top 30 coffees, how do you define smallholder farmers in your case? Can you explain? People wanted to understand that.
Sure. It really depends on the country that we're operating in, but I do think that when we look at it universally and from origin to origin, the average, especially if you look at it considering Colombia, where the average is about 2.5 hectares per producer. Now that may not be the same average that we might find in Ethiopia or in other East African producing countries. But I tend to think that if we look at the global scale, that 2 to 3 hectares is probably what would define a smallholder. And I'm certain that, in certain countries, I know this is true in Rwanda and Kenya, that it's not even really the amount of land, it's actually the amount of plants. So in some very small producers may indicate I have 600 plants, I have 800 plants, so when we look at those types of numbers, we would also say that those tend to be the smaller holders. When you throw it up against Brazil and look at the size of a small farmer there, it's probably the largest or larger size of other countries' farmers. So, it just kind of depends. But in our system, it really is dependent upon the countries where we work. But I think globally, I think that 2 to 3 hectares is probably a safe amount. So.
While you are at it, Darren, I want to give you an opportunity to just summarize your points and give us what to expect from the auction that's coming this June. The Ethiopian Coffee Cup of Excellence Ethiopian coffees are going to be auctioned. You have given us highlights somehow, but can you just give us some excitement again?
Sure. Well, now all of the sample sets that have been ordered are making their way to all of the bidders, and the majority of these bidders are coming from Korea and Japan, Taiwan, but really everywhere from Vietnam to Thailand to Saudi Arabia. It's truly being globalized in terms of the interest level, and including the U.S., which there are quite a few U.S. Registered bidders too. Obviously there are certain economies in the U.S. right now that are around the world that are heavily affected by the pandemic. So we have reached out as soon as we started to see what was going on globally. We reached out to a lot of our members to get an understanding on their level of ability or interest to bid despite the pandemic. And for the most part, what we heard was very positive. From Europe to Australia and other economies that are absorbing this a little bit better than the U.S. economy, which is fairly devastated at this point. So despite all of that, we're very hopeful that this auction will go off very well and there'll be a high level of interest, especially considering where we see the economies in South Korea and Japan that have weathered through this, and businesses getting back to normalized processes and behavior. So I think we are going to see an exciting auction. I think we're going to see a lot of heavy bidding, and it'll be very, very exciting to see the entire week of the National Winners Auction as well as the actual Cup of Excellence auction on the 25th. So we're very hopeful. This is the first auction of 2020 for Cup of Excellence. So this will set the tone for the rest of the year. And so Ethiopia has been so important for us. It's been a driver in so many ways, and we are excited to have it be the first for 2020. So.
Thank you so much, Darren. We really appreciate you taking your time. We know you are from Portland, Oregon, which is like you woke up at before 5 a.m. and you are here with us. I know you have your mug of coffee before you started talking.
Ethiopian coffee too, by the way.
And I'm having my cold brew right here. I
think
they told me
all right.
So yes, coffee energizes us. Coffee gives us this excitement that nothing else can give. So thank you for taking your time to just give us this amazing information about Cup of Excellence. Kellam, one last one to you. You're there, right?
I'm here.
Yes. Hi, Caleb. Thank you for being here. And can you give us, like, if there are any issues you want to address as a wrap up to what you said earlier in terms of innovative approaches to maintaining businesses and diversify some of the activities within a coffee export or cafe barista business. So many people are listening from all over the world. So if there is anything you want to add, I want to give you the opportunity to say your points here.
Oh, Sarah, thank you. And thank you to all the presenters. I've been feverishly taking notes. So in some ways, I feel like this was an educational opportunity specifically designed for me in service to our global network. I just wanted to point out that as we look to the future and to overcome these challenges, as so many of the speakers have highlighted today, it's a balance of learning from the past and a bridge to the future. And as we've seen within IWCA, as we look to understand what is happening and be able to respond innovatively in a way that helps us to become stronger, inclusion and communication have been so very fundamental to truly understanding, as Miriam mentioned, what are the enabling factors, both for problems to spread and take root, but also to have solutions that overcome them. And I applaud all of the speakers here today in sharing openly in a way that benefits the entire industry as a whole. And as we've seen within the IWCA network, again, if there is anything good to have been said about this pandemic, is it's really strengthened our ability to focus on communicating and supporting one another. A rising tide lifts all ships for a stronger industry at large. Within the IWCA network, we've seen an increase in solution-making partnerships, an increase in communications across stakeholder groups. So country boundaries have not mattered as much in the opportunity to share lessons learned and what's happening on the ground. Because unfortunately, we don't have the opportunity to take one challenge at a time. We have a system of challenges, but within the industry, we have a system of solutions as well. So I applaud all of those organizations that are working together to share expertise, from exporters to exporters, from importers to importers, as well as those working with a focus on the full supply chain, not just one particular role, but the opportunity to really think systematically and solve not only the challenges we know we face, but the challenges that are surely yet to come, because it's the only way to emerge stronger and to help the industry to thrive for all. So thank you to everyone, and we look forward to continued partnership, and of course, any way that we can support the growth and strengthening of the industry at large.
Thank you so much, everybody. Like, I was also writing notes while, like you, Kellam, because this is a very important discussion for us. So, yeah. You can also go to YouTube and interact with the audience even after this, because there are so many questions that come individually to you guys. So you can address those because we don't have the time to do that. But just to highlight, to take major highlights from this, the takeaway is that coffee is a very important sector in Ethiopia and in the global market. Ethiopian coffees are really, really unique in their characters, and we know the world loves Ethiopian coffees. So educating ourselves to be able to put our coffees in a place they deserve in the international market is key. We need to collaborate. The new improvements in the digital Ethiopia side from Miriam is really encouraging, and we're really looking forward to what comes next. And as Ashanafi said, that's why our title to the event is Coffee, Ethiopian Coffees, Global Market Amidst COVID and Beyond. So let's see beyond, because yes, COVID is going to stay, as scientists are saying, but we're not going to give up hope, because there is always solution. such challenges drive solution, and the solution will come quickly. We're praying for that. The Cup of Excellence coffees, yes, we look forward to the auction. And as Darren said, it's positive and heavily bidded so far. It's been globally distributed for cupping. We look forward to the bid, and we know we're going to have amazing performance from our coffees, and the bidders will not be disappointed if they bid the highest in the history of Cup of Excellence, I can assure them. Thank you to our audience who's taking part in this. Thank you to our panelists for taking your time. We know you are busy in your own businesses, although we're working from home, although we don't know when is Monday or if it is Sunday today, I don't know, but you know what I mean, because we're home most of the time, but we're still working. And globalization was a threat before. Now it's becoming real, and it's no more a threat. There is no boundary. We can communicate, we can talk. Let's talk coffee. Let's continue doing this. We promise you we're going to have these sessions coming every month, and everybody is going to get the chance. Audiences that are giving us the reason to be here, thank you so much for registering and being online with us. I will give the platform to Manahat to wrap up, and I say goodbye here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for all the panelists and for all of you tuning in via YouTube today. You know, the event partner for this webinar is Flawless Events. We're based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Please subscribe to our YouTube channels and follow us on social media for announcements on similar like events. We will be having this coffee event every month, so stay tuned. One last message I would like to convey is to the Black Lives Matter movement in the US. We see the struggle and we stand by you. Our prayers and thoughts are for a speedy resolution. To close, we would like to watch the Lands of Origin movie from Ethiopia. Thank you again, and have a wonderful week.
Thank you very much to all.
We are traveling through an unprecedented time. We are uncertain of the history being written. Our reality is so fragmented. Our yesterday, today, tomorrow. In the past, we have shared moments so pure, lit up the streets with our incandescence, scaled heights unimaginable, danced to rhythms so harmonious, stood beyond structures so heavenly, marveled at the origins of mankind, devoured meals of explosive taste. We have done so much more together. At this moment, with the streets so quiet, we have these memories on repeat. We are going through this together. We are sharing what we can. As for the future, the only way is through. The only way is together. Memories will be waiting. Our tomorrows will be waiting. We will survive. We will light up. We will embrace one another. This is from Ethiopia, the land of origins. At heart and in mind, we stand with you. We are with you through today's hardships for a tomorrow of new memories. Stay safe today for your travel, for our reunion tomorrow. We can't wait to see you soon at the land of origins.